The final day of the war games dawned with the largest space battle in galactic history about to begin. Every alien fleet had gathered in formation, their ships stretched across millions of miles of space. At the center of this vast armada, 12 human vessels looked impossibly small. "This is it," Admiral Brooks announced to our fleet. "Everything we've worked for comes down to the next few hours. Remember, we're not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We just need to prove we belong here." Admiral Vextar's voice came over the communication system, broadcasting to the entire galaxy. "Today, the primitives face the full might of the Coalition. Let this be a lesson to any who think technology can be replaced by luck." But it wasn't luck that had brought humanity this far, and every military expert in the galaxy knew it. The humans had won through superior tactics, adaptability, and weapons that worked in ways the aliens had never considered. The battle began with the alien fleets, advancing in perfect formation. Thousands of ships moved like a single organism, their energy weapons charging with deadly purpose. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "They're trying to overwhelm us with sheer numbers," Captain Davis observed from his tactical station. "Classic mistake. They're thinking like a computer instead of thinking like a warrior." Admiral Brooks had anticipated this. "Execute Plan Hornets." "Nest," she ordered. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions. Instead of staying together to face the alien advance, they split into small groups that moved independently. Each group had a specific mission and target. "What are they doing?" Captain Zillinox demanded. "They're abandoning formation." This makes no tactical sense, but it made perfect sense to humans. Instead of fighting as one large fleet against overwhelming odds, they had become 12 separate problems that the aliens had to solve simultaneously. Jake Morrison led one group toward the Zephyrian flagship. His 3 ships were tiny compared to Admiral Vextar's massive vessel, but they carried the most advanced human weapons that Dr. Roberts had developed. "Remember," Jake told his crew, "we're not trying to destroy their ship. We just need to prove we can hurt it." The flagship's energy shields were the most powerful in the galaxy. They had never been penetrated by any weapon in 1,000 years of warfare. But they had never faced human kinetic weapons either. The USS Dakota fired a full spread of armor-piercing missiles. These weren't ordinary explosives. They were Dr. Roberts' masterpiece. Each missile carried a tungsten core that could punch through almost anything, followed by an explosive charge that would detonate inside the target. The missiles struck the flagship's shields, and something unprecedented happened. Instead of bouncing off or being absorbed, they punched right through. The shields sparked and flickered as the physical projectiles overwhelmed their energy-based defenses. "Impossible!" Admiral Vextar shouted. "Nothing can penetrate our shields." But the explosions inside his ship's outer hull told a different story. Alarms began blaring as damage reports flooded in. The mighty Zephyrian flagship, pride of the Galactic Fleet, had been hurt by 3 primitive human ships. Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships used their mobility to avoid the worst of the alien firepower while striking at carefully chosen targets. They didn't try to match the aliens shot for shot. Instead, they fought smart. Major Clark's fighters swarmed around alien capital ships like angry insects. Their missiles couldn't destroy the massive vessels, but they could damage sensors, weapon systems, and communication arrays. Soon, alien ships were struggling to coordinate their attacks. "Their small craft are targeting our command and control systems," one alien captain reported. "We're losing tactical coordination." Colonel White had landed Marine forces on several key asteroids and space stations. His troops used portable missile launchers to strike at alien ships that came too close. The aliens had never faced ground-to-space combat before. "How are infantry units engaging our fleet?" An alien admiral demanded. This violates all accepted rules of space warfare. Maybe that's the problem, Dr. Kethra replied from her monitoring station. We've been following the same rules for so long that we forgot warfare is supposed to be unpredictable. The battle raged for hours. The aliens had superior numbers and firepower, but the humans had something more valuable, flexibility. Every time the aliens adapted to one human tactic, the humans would switch to something completely different. Human ships used the gravity of nearby planets to slingshot around alien formations. They hid in nebula clouds and ambushed pursuing vessels. They even used their own destroyed ships as improvised weapons, ramming them into alien formations. They fight like madmen, one alien commander complained. They take risks that no sane species would consider. But the risks were calculated. Human military doctrine had always emphasized that sometimes you had to gamble everything to win. The aliens, with their computer-perfect tactics, had forgotten how to take chances. As the day wore on, something remarkable happened. The humans weren't losing. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, they were holding their own against the entire coalition fleet. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. Civilian populations on thousands of worlds watched in amazement as the species they had mocked just days earlier fought the greatest military powers in known space to a standstill. This is impossible, one news commentator said. 12 primitive ships cannot match the entire coalition fleet. Yet somehow they are. Admiral Vextar found himself in a position he had never imagined. His flagship was damaged, his fleet was scattered, and a species he had dismissed as primitives was making him look foolish in front of the entire galaxy. Sir, Captain Zilinox approached him carefully. Our casualties are mounting. Perhaps we should call a halt to the exercises. Admiral Vextar looked out at the battle raging around his ship. Human vessels darted between his massive ships like minnows swimming with whales. But these minnows had teeth. No, he said quietly. Let it continue. The galaxy needs to see this. See what, sir? The future, Admiral Vextar replied. We've been the dominant military power for so long that we forgot what real warfare looks like. These humans are teaching us lessons we desperately needed to learn. As the battle entered its final phase, Admiral Brooks made a decision that would be remembered for centuries. Instead of continuing to fight, she opened a communication channel to all alien fleets. This is Admiral Patricia Brooks of Earth, she announced. We have proven our point. We don't need to destroy your ships or kill your people. We just needed to show you that different doesn't mean inferior. The battlefield fell silent as her words reached every ship in the massive fleet. We offer peace, Admiral Brooks continued, not as your servants or your protected children, but as your equals. We have different weapons and different tactics, but we share the same goal, protecting our people and our way of life. Admiral Vextar listened to her words and realized that everything had changed. The war games had started as a way to put humanity in its place. Instead, they had revealed that the galaxy's understanding of warfare was dangerously limited. The war games are concluded, he announced to the fleet. By unanimous decision of the Coalition Council, Earth is invited to join as a full member with all rights and privileges. The second day of the war games began with emergency meetings in every alien fleet. Military commanders who had been laughing just 24 hours ago were now frantically studying recordings of human combat tactics. Replay that section again. Admiral Vextar ordered his tactical staff. On the screen, a human missile changed direction 3 times before hitting his Ephorian drone. How did their weapon do that? The projectile carries its own guidance system, Dr. Kethra explained. It can think and make decisions during flight. Our energy weapons travel in straight lines at light speed. We fire and hit instantly. But their missiles take time to reach targets. so they made them smart enough to hunt. Captain Zillinox shook his head in disbelief. They put thinking machines inside their ammunition? What kind of species does that? The kind that wins battles, Admiral Vextar said grimly. Across the fleet, other alien commanders were having similar conversations. The insectoid hive buzzed with confusion as their analysts tried to understand human fragmentation weapons. The Crystalline Empire's perfect calculations were useless against human tactics that seemed to have no mathematical logic. Meanwhile, Admiral Brooks gathered her officers for their own planning meeting. "They know we're dangerous now," she said. "They won't underestimate us again. Today's battles will be much harder." "Ma'am, we're still outnumbered 1,000 to 1, Colonel White pointed out. "Even if our weapons work, we can't fight the entire galaxy." "We don't need to fight the entire galaxy," Admiral Brooks replied. "We just need to prove that we belong here as equals, not servants." The morning's exercise was fleet combat in an asteroid field. Large ships would maneuver through the rocky obstacles, while smaller vessels provided support. It was designed to test coordination, navigation, and tactical thinking. The Zephyrian fleet moved first. Their ships glided through the asteroids like they were dancing, avoiding collisions with perfect precision. Their energy weapons carved paths through the rocks, clearing routes for their advance. "Elegant," one alien commentator noted. "See how they work together with computer-perfect timing. This is how space combat should look." Then the human fleet entered the asteroid field, and everything changed. Instead of avoiding the asteroids, human ships used them as weapons. Captain Davis had studied the field carefully and identified several large rocks that could be moved with the right application of force. "Target that asteroid with explosive rounds," he ordered. "Calculate the trajectory to hit the Zephyrian formation." Human ships fired missiles and artillery shells at carefully chosen asteroids. The explosions sent massive rocks tumbling toward alien vessels at high speed. The aliens had to break formation to avoid being crushed. "They're using the environment as a weapon," Dr. Kethra reported with amazement. "We never considered such tactics." But humans had been using their environment in warfare for thousands of years. They knew how to turn any battlefield to their advantage, whether it was a forest, a city, or a field of space rocks. Major Clark's fighters darted between the asteroids like birds flying through a forest. They used the rocks as cover, appearing suddenly to fire missiles before disappearing again. The alien superior sensors were useless when they couldn't get clear shots. "Their small craft are using the obstacles to avoid our targeting systems," Captain Zillinox reported. "We cannot maintain weapon locks." The human fighters struck again and again, hitting alien ships from unexpected angles. When the aliens tried to pursue them, the humans would lead them into carefully planned ambushes where other human ships were waiting. "They fight like pack hunters," one alien military expert observed. "Each attack is coordinated with others. They use misdirection and ambush tactics." The aliens had relied on their technology for so long that they had forgotten the basics of warfare. They expected enemies to fight fair, standing in open space and trading shots until the better weapons won. Humans had never fought fair in their lives. The afternoon brought ground combat exercises on a captured asteroid that had been converted into a mock space station. This should have been where alien superiority was most obvious. Their powered armor and energy weapons were designed for close-quarters combat. Colonel White led a company of human Marines against alien defenders. The humans wore simpler armor and carried projectile weapons that the aliens still considered primitive. The first alien they encountered was a Zephyrian warrior in gleaming powered armor. His energy shields flickered around him like blue fire, and his plasma rifle could melt through solid steel. The human Marine who faced him carried an old-fashioned shotgun loaded with armor-piercing shells. The shotgun roared, and the alien warrior fell. His energy shields, designed to stop heat and energy, couldn't stop physical projectiles traveling at high velocity. The armor-piercing shells punched right through his defenses. Impossible, the aliens' backup team reported. His shields were at full power, but the humans were just getting started. They used grenades that filled corridors with deadly fragments. They deployed smoke that blocked alien sensors. They set up crossfires that caught enemies in deadly trap zones. The aliens fought back with advanced tactics of their own, but they were unprepared for human brutality. Where alien weapons were precise and clean, human weapons were designed to cause maximum damage and chaos. Their weapons are so primitive, one alien soldier complained as he took cover from human machine gun fire. But they hurt so much more than energy weapons. Energy weapons killed quickly and cleanly. Human kinetic weapons caused trauma, bleeding, and shock. They were designed by a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of violence. By evening, the impossible had happened. Again, human forces had not just survived the day's battles, they had won most of them. News of the victories spread across the galaxy at light speed. Emergency sessions were called in coalition governments. Military budgets that had been cut for centuries were suddenly restored. Weapons research programs that had been abandoned were hastily restarted. We need to understand how they do it, one alien leader demanded. How does a primitive species defeat our most advanced technology? The answer was becoming clear to some of the smarter alien observers. Humanity hadn't won because their technology was better. They had won because their thinking was different. They don't fight the way we expect, Dr. Kethra reported to the Coalition Science Council. We have spent thousands of years perfecting energy weapons and defenses against energy weapons. They use physical force, which operates by completely different rules. But kinetic weapons are so crude, one council member protested. So messy and inefficient. Efficient at what? Dr. Kethra asked. At killing enemies? At winning battles? Because by those measures, human weapons are extremely efficient. In his private office, Admiral Vextar studied intelligence reports about human military history. What he found there shocked him more than their victories in the war games. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, had developed tactics for every possible situation. They had weapons designed for every type of enemy. Most terrifying of all, they seemed to enjoy the challenge of warfare. Sir, Captain Zilinox entered with the latest battle reports. Our casualties for today are the highest in war games history. If this continues, we'll have to end the exercises early. Admiral Vextar looked out at the human fleet. Their ships still looked small and primitive compared to his massive vessels. But he was beginning to understand that appearances could be deceiving. No, he said finally. We continue the games as planned. Tomorrow is full fleet combat. We will meet them with everything we have. Sir, are you sure? They've already proven their point. Admiral Vextar smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Have they? Tomorrow they face the entire Zephyrian battle fleet in open combat. Let's see how their primitive weapons perform against the full might of the Coalition's greatest military power. But even as he said it, Admiral Vextar felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. For the first time in 1,000 years, he was not certain that the Zephyrians would win. The galaxy held its breath as news of the human victories spread. Tomorrow would decide humanity's place in the galactic order. Would they join as equals, or would superior numbers finally overcome their tactical advantages? In the USS Dakota, Jake Morrison looked out at the vast alien fleet surrounding his small force. Tomorrow would be the ultimate test. 12 human ships against thousands of alien vessels. Think we can do it, Captain? Amy Johnson asked. Jake smiled and checked his weapons one more time. Amy, we're human. We've been fighting impossible odds since we first picked up sticks and stones. Tomorrow's just another day at the office. The Kepler system had been transformed into the largest military gathering in galactic history. Thousands of alien ships filled the space around the star, their hulls gleaming with advanced technology. Each ship was beautiful in its own way, shaped like crystals, flowing water, or geometric art. In the middle of this vast fleet, 12 human ships looked tiny and primitive. The USS Dakota led the human formation, with Jake Morrison still in command. Admiral Brooks had taken overall command from her flagship, the USS Liberty. "Welcome to the Coalition War Games," Admiral Vextar announced over the communication system. His massive ship was 3 miles long and covered with weapons that glowed with blue energy. "Let us begin with demonstrations of proper military capability. The first day was reserved for shows of power. Each species would display their weapons and tactics for the others to observe and judge. The Zephyrians went first, naturally. Captain Zilanox commanded a squadron of sleek fighters that moved like dancers in space. They fired perfectly aimed energy beams that hit targets from impossible distances. Their coordination was flawless. Every shot found its mark. Observe the efficiency," Admiral Vextar said proudly. "Clean energy weapons. No waste, no mess. This is how civilized beings conduct warfare." Next came the Crystalline Empire. Their ships looked like living gems and fired rainbow-colored beams that could cut through anything. The Insectoid Hive showed off weapons that fired thousands of energy bolts in perfect swarms. Each alien demonstration was more impressive than the last. They destroyed target after target with casual ease. Their weapons were silent, beautiful, and devastatingly effective. Then it was humanity's turn. "Oh, this should be amusing," one alien commentator said. "Let's see what the primitives can do with their metal throwers." Jake's ship moved forward toward the test targets. These were old derelict ships that the aliens used for practice. They were protected by the same energy shields that had stopped human bullets during the first meeting. "Remember the plan," Admiral Brooks said over the communication system. "Keep it simple. Show them what we can do." The USS Dakota opened fire. Bright flashes erupted from its guns, followed by trails of smoke and fire. The sounds of human weapons were harsh and violent compared to the clean silence of alien energy beams. The first railgun shot hit a target's shield. Instead of bouncing off like the bullet had at Nexus Prime, something different happened. The shield flickered and sparked. The metal slug punched right through and struck the ship's hull with tremendous force. The aliens stopped laughing. "Impossible," Captain Zilanox muttered. Their primitive projectile penetrated our shield matrix, but the humans weren't finished. Amy Johnson had loaded the ship's weapons with Dr. Roberts' special ammunition. The next shots were explosive rounds. They passed through the energy shields like they weren't even there and detonated inside the target ships. Explosions bloomed in space as human weapons tore apart targets that alien energy beams had barely scratched. The derelict ships, which had survived thousands of alien demonstrations, were reduced to scrap metal in minutes. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Vextar demanded. His voice had lost its amused tone. Dr. Kethra, the Zephyrian chief scientist, was frantically running calculations on her computer. "The energy shields are designed to deflect or absorb energy-based attacks. But these kinetic projectiles operate on completely different principles." "Explain," Admiral Vextar ordered. "Energy weapons heat, disrupt, or disintegrate targets. Our shields counter these effects perfectly. But kinetic weapons simply transfer momentum through direct physical impact. The shields cannot stop something that isn't trying to affect molecular bonds or transfer energy." On the USS Dakota, Jake watched the alien reactions with satisfaction. "Looks like our toy weapons aren't so useless after all." The war games moved to the next phase: live combat exercises. Human ships would face off against alien drones in actual battle scenarios. The aliens expected this to end quickly and badly for humanity. Major Clark led a squadron of human fighters against Zephyrian combat drones. The drones were faster and more maneuverable than human ships, with superior weapons and defenses. On paper, it should have been a massacre, but human pilots had learned to fight in Earth's atmosphere, where physics worked differently than in space. They knew how to use gravity, momentum, and inertia as weapons. They could think in 3 dimensions and adapt to changing conditions. The drones fired their energy weapons with perfect accuracy, but the human fighters were no longer where the computers expected them to be. Human pilots flew in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully planned. Their flight patterns make no sense, the drone controller complained. They are not following any logical tactical doctrine. That was exactly the point. Human tactics were based on improvisation and adaptability. While alien computers tried to predict their movements, human pilots changed their plans in real time. The first human missile hit a drone and detonated. The explosion sent shrapnel in all directions, damaging 2 other drones. The aliens had never seen weapons that used blast effects to hit multiple targets. Their projectiles fragment upon impact, Dr. Kether reported. This causes secondary damage patterns that our shields cannot anticipate or counter. More human fighters pressed their attack. Their missiles weaved through space, changing direction to confuse alien targeting systems. When they hit hard. Drones that had been considered invincible began falling to human weapons. "This is impossible," Admiral Vextar said. "Our drones have energy shields, advanced armor, and superior firepower. How are these primitives defeating them?" Captain Rick Davis, coordinating the human attack from the USS Liberty, smiled grimly. "Because we're not trying to out-technology them. We're outthinking them." The alien observers fell silent as the battle continued. Human ships used tactics that the aliens had never seen before. They worked together in small groups, supporting each other and adapting to enemy movements. When alien ships concentrated their fire on one human vessel, the others would attack from unexpected angles. When the aliens spread out to avoid missile explosions, human ships would focus their fire to overwhelm individual targets. "Their coordination is remarkable," one alien military expert admitted. "They fight as if each ship knows what all the others are thinking." The truth was simpler than that. Human military doctrine emphasized communication and teamwork, while alien ships relied on computer coordination. Human crews talked to each other constantly, sharing information and adapting their plans. By the end of the first day of combat, humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had not only survived against superior alien technology, but they had actually won several engagements. The alien media, which had been preparing to broadcast humanity's humiliating defeat, suddenly found themselves with a very different story. Emergency broadcasts went out across the galaxy as news of the human victory spread. "This is unprecedented," one news anchor reported. "A primitive species with crude kinetic weapons has defeated advanced coalition drones. Military experts are calling for immediate analysis of human tactics and technology." In his private quarters, Admiral Vextar stared at the reports of the day's battles. For the first time in his military career, he was genuinely concerned. The humans were not just lucky. They were good. "Sir," Captain Zillinox entered the room. "The Council is demanding an explanation. How did primitives with metal throwers defeat our most advanced combat systems?" Admiral Vextar turned to look out at the human ships. They were smaller and uglier than any ship in his fleet, but they had accomplished something that no other species had managed in 1,000 years. "I don't know," he admitted. "But tomorrow, We face them in full fleet combat. And tomorrow, we will not underestimate them again. The war games were far from over. But already, everything had changed. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the species that looks weakest in surprise you the most. 2 weeks after returning to Earth, Jake Morrison found himself sitting in a room full of the most important people on the planet. The President, the Secretary of Defense, and dozens of military leaders had gathered to hear about humanity's first contact with aliens. So they laughed at us, said Admiral Patricia Brooks, Earth's top military commander. She was a tough woman who had worked her way up through the ranks. And now they want us to join their coalition as junior members. That's right, Jake replied. They think our weapons are toys. They offered to protect us like we're children who can't take care of ourselves. Admiral Brooks slammed her fist on the table. No one protects humanity but humanity. What did you tell them? That we would consider their offer. But I think we both know what our real answer is. 3 days later, a message arrived from the Galactic Coalition. Admiral Vextar appeared on screens around the world, his blue face showing that same amused smile. Greetings, people of Earth, he said. The Coalition Council has decided to invite your species to participate in our war games. This is a great honor that we give to all potential new members. The message explained that every 10 years, all Coalition species gathered to test their military skills. It was called a training exercise, but everyone knew it was really a test. The winners got respect and better treatment. The losers became servants. The war games will be held in the Kepler system in 2 months, Admiral Vextar continued. We look forward to seeing what your primitive weapons can do against real military forces. It should be quite entertaining. The message ended with laughter. From other aliens in the background, Admiral Brooks called together her best officers. Colonel Danny White commanded Earth's ground forces. Major Susan Clark led the fighter pilot program. Captain Rick Davis was their best naval tactical expert. They want to humiliate us, Admiral Brooks said. Show the whole galaxy that humans are weak and need protection. But we're going to give them a surprise they'll never forget. Ma'am, their weapons are clearly superior, Colonel White said. Their energy shields stopped our bullets like we're nothing. That's what they want us to think, Admiral Brooks replied. But I've been studying the recordings from Jake's meeting. Their shields work perfectly against energy weapons. But what about other things? She called in Dr. Helen Roberts, Earth's leading weapons scientist. Dr. Roberts was young but brilliant, and she had been thinking about the alien problem for weeks. I've been running tests, Dr. Roberts said. Energy shields work by deflecting or absorbing energy beams. But kinetic weapons work differently. They transfer physical force through direct impact. In simple terms, Doctor, Admiral Brooks said, bullets hit things. Energy beams heat things up or break them apart. The aliens have perfect protection against heat and energy, but they might not be ready for something that just hits really hard. Engineer Paul Martinez stepped forward. He had been working on new ammunition designs. I've created several new bullet types, armor-piercing rounds, explosive shells, and some special surprises. If we can hit them, we can hurt them. Meanwhile, alien media broadcasts were already making fun of the upcoming war games. Zephyrian news shows called it the Human Comedy Hour. Betting pools across the galaxy gave humanity odds of 1,000 to 1 against winning even a single battle. Look at their tiny ships, one alien commentator said while showing pictures of human vessels. 12 ships against thousands. And with those pathetic metal throwers for weapons, I predict they will surrender within 5 minutes. Captain Zelenox appeared on several broadcasts, holding human weapons like museum pieces. These relics belong in a history display, he said. I am bringing special collection containers to preserve them after the humans inevitably lose. But not all aliens were laughing. Some of the older species sent private messages to Earth. They warned that the Zephyrians were cruel winners and that humanity should be careful. The coalition is not as united as it appears, one message said. Many of us are tired of Zephyrian arrogance. But they have the strongest fleet, so we must follow their rules. Back on Earth, humanity's best engineers worked day and night to prepare for the war games. They couldn't build new ships in time, but they could improve their weapons. Dr. Roberts developed new types of ammunition. Some bullets were designed to punch through armor. Others would explode after penetrating a target. She even created special rounds that would split into multiple pieces, causing maximum damage. Paul Martinez designed new missile systems. Human missiles were different from alien energy weapons. They carried explosive warheads and could change direction during flight. He made them faster and more accurate. Major Clark trained fighter pilots in new tactics. Human fighters were smaller and more agile than alien ships. They couldn't match alien firepower, but they could move in ways that alien pilots didn't expect. Colonel White prepared ground troops for combat in space stations and alien environments. Human soldiers had trained for centuries in rough conditions. They knew how to fight when things went wrong. Captain Davis studied alien ship designs and found weaknesses. The aliens built their ships to fight other energy weapon users. Their armor and shields had gaps that kinetic weapons might exploit. As the departure date approached, alien delegations arrived on Earth to observe human preparations. They walked through human military bases, laughing at what they saw. Still using chemical propellants, Admiral Vextar said while watching artillery practice. How quaint. We stopped using such things 20,000 years ago. And look at these ground troops, Captain Zillinox added. They carry so much equipment. Our soldiers need only energy weapons and shields. Much more efficient. But some humans noticed that the aliens were taking detailed recordings of everything they saw. Maybe they weren't as confident as they pretended to be. The night before departure, Admiral Brooks gave a speech to all human forces. Soldiers, sailors, pilots, and support crew gathered in person and watched on screens around the world. Tomorrow we represent not just our military, but our entire species, she said. The aliens think they know what we can do. They think our weapons are worthless and our tactics are primitive. Let them think that. She paused and looked out at the faces of her people. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned lessons in blood and sacrifice that these aliens have forgotten. They rely on their technology. We rely on our skill, our courage, and our determination. The galaxy is about to learn something important, Admiral Brooks continued. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Sometimes simple solutions beat complex ones. And sometimes the weapon you don't expect is the one that wins the war. The human fleet left Earth the next morning. 12 ships against thousands. Primitive weapons against advanced technology. David going to fight Goliath. But as Jake Morrison watched Earth disappear behind them, he smiled. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They had judged humanity by their weapons instead of by their hearts. Soon, the galaxy would learn the difference between the two. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Dakota and looked out at the stars. After 3 years of traveling through space, his crew had finally found what they were looking for. The ship's computers had picked up strange signals from a nearby star system. These were not natural signals. Someone else was out there. Captain, we're getting a message, said Lieutenant Lisa Martinez from her station. She was the ship's communication expert and spoke several Earth languages. Now she would need to learn something completely new. Put it on screen, Jake said. His heart was beating fast. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for hundreds of years. First contact with aliens. The screen showed a tall blue creature with 4 arms and large black eyes. It spoke in a strange language, but somehow, the ship's computer was already starting to translate the words. "Greetings, unknown vessel," the alien said. "I am Admiral Vexstar of the Galactic Coalition. You have entered our space. State your purpose." Jake stepped forward and straightened his uniform. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. We come in. Peace. We want to learn about the galaxy and meet new friends." The alien's face changed. It looked surprised and then amused. "Earth? We have never heard of this place. You are a new species, yes? How interesting. Follow our ships to Nexus Prime. Station. The Coalition Council will want to meet you." 3 hours later, Jake and his crew walked through the halls of Nexus Prime. The station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few looked almost human, but had purple skin and extra eyes. Lieutenant Amy Johnson walked beside Jake, carrying a metal case. She was the ship's weapons expert and had brought examples of human military technology. "Captain, I'm nervous about this meeting," she said. "We all are, Amy," Jake replied. "But this is what we came here for." Commander Steve Parker, the ship's tactical officer, looked around at all the aliens. "Sir, some of their weapons look very advanced, much more than ours." They entered a large room where dozens of aliens were waiting. Admiral Vexstar stood at the center, now wearing what looked like a military uniform covered in metals. Beside him was another alien that looked like a giant bird with metal wings. "Welcome, humans," Admiral Vexstar said with a smile that showed too many teeth. "We are excited to meet a new species. Tell us about your people." Jake began to explain about Earth and humanity. He talked about their history, their culture, and their hopes for the future. The aliens listened politely, but Jake could see they were not very impressed. "Fascinating," said Admiral Vexstar when Jake finished. "And what of your military capabilities?" "All Coalition members must be able to defend themselves and help protect others." This was Amy's moment. She opened her metal case and pulled out a standard human rifle. "This is our main infantry weapon," she said proudly. "It fires metal bullets at high speed, very reliable and effective." The room went quiet for a moment. Then one alien started to laugh. Soon, dozens of aliens were laughing so hard that some fell down. "Metal bullets?" Admiral Vexstar said, wiping his eyes. "You throw pieces of metal at your enemies? How wonderfully primitive." The bird-like alien stepped forward. "I am Captain Zillinox, weapons master of the Zephyrian fleet. Let me show you real weapons." He pulled out a device that looked like a crystal tube. "This is a plasma rifle. Watch." He pointed the weapon at a target across the room. A bright blue beam shot out, and the target simply disappeared. Nothing was left, not even dust. "And this," Captain Zillinox continued, pulling out another device, "is a molecular disruptor. It breaks apart the bonds between atoms." He fired it at another target. This time, the target turned into a pile of gray dust. The aliens applauded and cheered. Admiral Vexstar smiled at the humans. "You see, these are real weapons. Your metal. Throwers are toys compared to our technology." Amy's face turned red. She had spent years studying weapons and was proud of human military engineering. "Our weapons are very effective," she said. "They have served us well for centuries." "I'm sure." "They have," Admiral Vexstar said in a voice like he was talking to a child. "Against other primitives with the same toy weapons. But look at this." He activated a small device on his belt. A shimmering blue field appeared around him. Amy raised her rifle and fired. The bullet hit the energy shield, and bounced off harmlessly. Energy. Shields, Admiral Vextar explained. Standard equipment for all coalition forces. Your bullets cannot harm us. He turned off the shield, and the field disappeared. Captain Zelenox picked up Amy's rifle and examined it like it was an ancient artifact. Such crude craftsmanship, he said. Do you still use chemical explosives too? Steve Parker stepped forward and showed them a grenade. Yes, we do. These are very powerful. The aliens laughed even harder. Chemical boomsticks. One of them shouted, What's next? Sharp sticks and throw rocks? Perhaps, Admiral Vextar said with fake kindness, we can place your species under our protection. As a junior member of the Coalition, you would be safe from any real threats. We could even give you proper weapons once you prove yourselves worthy. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. We appreciate your offer, Admiral. But humanity prefers to stand on its own feet. Of course, of course. Admiral Vextar said, Take your time to think about it. But remember, the galaxy is a dangerous place for those with only toy weapons. The meeting ended soon after. As the humans walked back to their ship, they could hear aliens still laughing and making jokes about metal throwers and boomsticks. On the bridge of the USS Dakota, Jake sat in his captain's chair and stared out at the alien ships surrounding the station. Each one was 3 times the size of his ship and covered with weapons that could destroy planets. Captain, Amy said, quietly, maybe they're right. Maybe our weapons are outdated. No, Amy, Jake said firmly. Different doesn't mean worse. Those aliens have forgotten something important. What's that, sir? Jake smiled grimly. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones. And sometimes the simple answer is the right answer. As the USS Dakota prepared to leave Nexus Prime, Jake made a decision. Humanity would prove itself. To the galaxy. They would show these arrogant aliens that being different was not the same as being weak. The stars were calling, and humanity would answer with everything they had.